Will and Christian in the morning.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Will and Christian in the morning, and happy Halloween. I can't really hear myself.
That was so loud in my ears.
I apologize for that.
It's okay.
I can't hear myself. Check one. Maybe I can now. I can now.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. Hello. Welcome back to the show. As always, I'm Christian.
I'm Will.
And today we have a very special guest. Welcome back to the show, friend of the pod, Matthew. Hello, Matthew.
Hello. How's everybody doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Fantastic. Thank you.
Fantastic. So it's been a bit. We're back live. Nice to be back in the studio. So let's just get right into it. Will, how have you been?
I've been good. I'm still riding off the high of the Brental Floss interview.
That was a lot of fun.
If you guys haven't listened, we had the opportunity to do almost like an hour-long, basically a full episode, interviewing Brent Black, a.k.a. Brental Floss, and it was a great time. It's on our YouTube channel now if you want to check that out. Just look up Will and Christian in the morning on YouTube. But besides that, my week's been pretty good. I know for a lot of people it's been very busy right now, and it's the same for me. But last Friday, I had a really cool experience. So close to where I live, there was a drive-in movie showing of an episode of Mystery Science Theater 3000, which, as you all know, I love that show a lot. And it was for like a charity in the area. So my mom, my sister, and I were all fans, so we went and watched. And they actually had the creator of the show, Joel Hodgson, there. He came and he played the intro and the guitar there, and he ended up going around to all the cars at the drive-in saying hi to people, signing autographs. So I actually got to meet him kind of and tell him how I got introduced to the show, which was really cool. He was very nice.
Did you get an autograph?
I did. I have they had photos of him when he was on the show, and he was he came over, he's like, "Can I sign this picture for you?" I was like, yes.
Very cool.
But he was very nice, and that was it was a lot of fun, and it was very funny. So how about you, Christian? How's your week been?
It's been pretty good. I think nothing cool like you did. I also am sort of, riding off the high of the Brental Floss interview. I had a lot of fun with that, and I think it was really cool how it was supposed to be 15 minutes, and it ended up being a full episode. And then he also shouted us out on Twitter, which I thought was really cool. So it's a verified account talked about us. I thought that was really cool. But my week's just been kind of mellow. Lots of work. But now it's Halloween and it's the weekend, so it's nice to have a little break. Matthew, welcome back. How have you been?
I'm happy to be here. I'm doing well. It's, like Christian said, I have nothing that is truly as exciting as the Mystery Science Theater thing, so I'm a little bit behind. But I'm good. Weeks have been a little slow. The work is really starting to pile up, Yeah. So I'm making it through. But it is the weekend. The sun is shining to an extent, as it has not been for the last couple of days.
That's true.
That is good. So I'm feeling good.
Nice. Good to hear.
Yes.
All right. Let's get right into it. First, we got a little bit of pre-show news. So I don't know if you guys have watched this, but the old show in the 90s, Animaniacs, created by the GOAT himself, Mr. Steven Spielberg. It was a cartoon, if you don't know, about three, I don't even know what kind of animals. It's like cat or dog or something, but
I don't know what they are.
It's the Warner brothers, as in the movies, and the Warner sister, Dot. So it's Yakko and Wacko and Dot, the three Warner siblings, and they just have a bunch of adventures, doing a bunch of crazy stuff, whatever. But it was a pretty iconic show back in the 90s, and it is now coming back for a reboot on Hulu. There are going to be 2 new seasons with updated graphics and references, because it was a very pop culture heavy show, lots of fourth wall breaks. So that will return along with Pinky and the Brain, which I think is it seems a little more popular, because I've kind of
I think they're just bringing back them and Pinky and the Brain in the episodes. I think in the old show there were a lot of side characters that it doesn't seem like are coming back, just because I think Pinky and the Brain were the most popular.
So is it a full series reboot, or is it they're doing that thing where it's We'll make like a special episode, or you know what I mean?
So they are returning for 2 new seasons, each with I think 13 episodes. So it's sort of like not really like a new series. I think it's more of just a revival, like 2 extra seasons of the original show, because they're gonna like talk a lot about like, oh, this back in the original show, or like they know, like the 3 of them know that they've been off the air for like however many years. I think like 20 years or 22
Something like
years.
that, yeah.
That's really crazy. But that will be premiering on Hulu. I think November 20th is when it comes out, that first season. And then the second season of 13 more episodes will be premiering sometime in 2021. But I've watched a little bit of the original show, and
Same.
I think it's pretty funny, and I'm a little excited for this.
Yeah, I'm more of a fan of like the songs from the show, because there's some banger songs. I feel like everybody knows like the nations of the world, even if you haven't seen the show. The President's song. There's so many that are just really good, and I feel like they used to have a song like every episode, so I'm hoping they continue that trend and have some new songs. But next up, there's some new Doctor Strange rumors. So I think the film is starting to film soon. I can't remember what I saw on that, but there's rumors on like what's going to be in it. So we've talked about the Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield Spider-Man multiverse type stuff in Spider-Man 3. There's rumors that they're going to be in this movie as Doctor Strange is like messing with the multiverse and everything. There's also rumors that Ryan Reynolds is going to show up as Deadpool, and that's how he'll be introduced into the MCU. And then also the return of Rachel McAdams and Tilda Swinton playing their characters, Dr. Christine Palmer and the Ancient One from the last movie, except I don't know how Tilda Swinton's going to come back, because the Ancient One, spoiler alert, died in the movie in the last movie, so not sure what they're going to do. And so yeah, we still don't really know what the plot's going to be, besides that multiverse stuff is going to be involved.
Something with Wanda. I think because I think the WandaVision show is leading directly into Doctor Strange, and I believe the Loki show is also going to lead into this. So I think that both Scarlet Witch and Loki will be in this show, because all 3 of them are sort of like magic wizard thing users kind of thing. So I think that would make sense if that happens.
It should be interesting.
Yeah, it should be interesting. Next up, very interesting piece of news. Like we talked about a couple weeks ago, how Jamie Foxx's Electro was coming back in Doctor Strange. That's confirmed.
And right? Spider-Man.
Oh, Spider-Man, sorry. Electro coming in Spider-Man, and we thought that was a weird casting. So another piece of weird casting, Jared Leto's Joker is supposed to return in the Snyder cut of Justice League, which is like the director's cut. And
he didn't even direct the movie, though.
Did he?
I thought that was Joss Whedon.
Or
like he was going to, and then he didn't, and now I don't even.
But Jared Leto will be returning as Joker. I don't think he did a very good job in Suicide Squad. That was a bad movie.
It was,
it was quite whack.
But I don't know how I feel about this. I mean, am I going to watch Justice League Snyder Cut? Probably not.
I will. It just is. I want to see how this turns out.
Maybe. We'll see. But I don't know. I'm not very interested.
Yeah, I don't know why they would, because they're refilmed, like they're filming new stuff for this from a movie that already came out, and
I didn't see the new Justice League movie. Was it any good?
Either. I've heard it was bad. That's the one with Superman like CG mustache, which like I hope they fix that. But I don't even know like where would you even put Joker if the movie's like already happened and there's already a villain in the movie?
Yeah,
but
maybe they'll sneak him in for another like 7 minutes of screen time like they did in Suicide Squad.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's probably going to be like a cameo.
Yeah, he probably is. They can't have like a significant role in the movie. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, but that should be. Yeah, I'm not gonna pay to watch it, but I'll watch it.
Definitely not.
Once it hits like Netflix or whatever. So next up, I have seen this everywhere. Marketing for this has been literally everywhere. Borat 2 subsequent movie film. Have you guys seen this everywhere? Because I've seen content
everywhere.
So the the Borat 2, Sacha Baron Cohen, the first film in 2006, extremely like offensive and crazy and outlandish. It was a huge hit when it came out. So 14 years later, he's decided to come out with a sequel. I'm not sure like why now, but if you haven't seen the movies, it is the story of Borat Sagdiyev, a reporter from Kazakhstan who comes to the U.S. to learn about U.S. customs. And there's a story to the movie, but it's also basically just him, Sacha Baron Cohen, going out in public and trolling people and doing extremely offensive and crazy things. But behind all of that, it's supposed to like kind of show American culture and some of the problems with it. And the second movie deals a lot with like the coronavirus and the election and everything going on right now. So there's scenes where he's talking to like politicians and they get fooled into having an interview with him, and just crazy stuff happens. I watched both like this past week. They're not for like the faint of heart, but they are actually very good. And if you can get past like the offensiveness and the craziness, which are kind of the point, like they're definitely entertaining. And obviously they've been a big hit like in the past, and they really went all out on the marketing for this one. So
yeah, like I see on like YouTube, like Borat is hanging out with like David Dobrik.
Yeah.
Like I feel like they're really kind of pushing the marketing like a little too hard. Like,
yeah,
literally everywhere.
It worked though, because it made me watch the movie.
I mean, I kind of want to watch it now.
Would you recommend the second movie?
Yes, I think the first is better. But
I agree.
The second,
I only saw the first one, which I thought was good, but also it's a little questionable.
The second is not as good, and I think they had to kind of like adjust because of coronavirus. Because like at one point in the movie, the tone just shifts to like the virus and quarantine and stuff. But there's really some like there's stuff that seems like it would be completely scripted that is totally real, and it's crazy. But it's on. They're both on Amazon Prime for free. You don't have to pay $30 to stream the new one. I would recommend it, but just be prepared to be a little like grossed out or offended.
So one more thing before we get into our main topic. Pretty big happened this I think yesterday. The Mandalorian season 2 has officially begun.
Yes.
The first episode of season 2 dropped yesterday. It was just chapter 9,
yeah.
I think it was called. Do we want to talk spoilery?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So, warning for anybody listening: we're about to talk about some spoilers for the new episode. So, if you have not watched it, I don't know, turn it off, but come back maybe in like
mute.
Or mute for like I don't know 5 minutes, something like that. We're not going to talk too long.
Not too
but
long.
Spoiler alert. Here we go. Okay, so, the Mandalorian goes to Tatooine again, but it's a different part of Tatooine. And first sort of big reveal, we got the warden of the town, played by Timothy Oliphant, and he is wearing Boba Fett's armor.
Oh yeah.
Whoa. Uh-oh.
It doesn't look right on him.
It looks very awkward on him. But then Mando, the warden, and some Tusken Raiders and the people, they all fight off a big sandworm, and like I think you said, it's kind of like a Knights of the Old Republic.
That's what I saw. Apparently, like it's a crate dragon, and there's a mission in that game where you like have to fight one almost exactly how they did in the show, and then you get a pearl from it, which they find in it after they kill it. So I guess fans of that thought that was pretty cool. So
I think overall it was a cool episode. I think it was just sort of cool, like more world building or whatever. But big reveal at the end. So Mando's speeding off, and then it pulls back in the distance. You see a guy standing there, and he turns around. Boom! It's Tamora Morrison, most likely. Wait for it. Boba Fett. What do we think? I mean, my first reaction was a little annoyed that they're bringing back Boba Fett, but to be fair, they brought back Darth Maul after getting chopped in half, and they made him into one of like the best characters. So I guess I'm really not allowed to be that mad, but
I think you could be a little mad.
I can be a little mad. So I think my legit thing is that I really like the new characters that they're making in The Mandalorian. and I don't want too many old characters.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I think this could be interesting, and it might not even be Boba Fett. It could be literally any of the clones.
That's true.
But I do think it's cool that they brought back Tamora Morrison, who played the clones and Jango in the movies. And now he's back to play some clone in this. So, I don't know. This is pretty exciting.
I think he will be a permanent or semi-permanent character.
I think it'll be like a one episode thing, if I'm being, or maybe he'll show up for one episode and then show up at the end, like some of the characters did. I don't care that much about Boba Fett, so they were like the reveal. It was good, but it's never gonna top the opening the thing and seeing freaking Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
Which, speaking of, I think they did a good job of not overindulging in the use of Baby Yoda, because I was so afraid that he'd be in like every shot doing crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But they he's there, he's just kind of chilling, and I think they know what they're doing with that.
I did like when they were in the fight ring, and this was a moment in the trailers, like Mando like sort of unlocks his like whistling whatever arrows, and then Baby Yoda like looks at him, and then he like slaps the button and closes his cradle, which I thought that was cute. I like that. But yeah, Boba Fett back in Mandalorian. Oh, and I want to mention, shout out James for the Berg, who pointed this out, because when he first watched it, he did not realize that Boba Fett was coming back. But he said, we talked about it a little last night after I watched it, and he said that R5 is back. And R5 is the droid in episode 4 that Luke was going to take, but then he blew up, so then Luke took R2, which, I don't know, James said he's like, oh, this is a big deal, which I did not notice. I guess it was in like It
was when he was with Amy Sedaris, I think.
Oh, yeah,
She's
yeah.
like, she was pissed off at the droid or something.
Yeah. So I guess R5's back. I don't know, but I thought I should mention that. So shout out James Berg.
Yes, but I'm looking forward to the next episode, seeing who else they bring back, because I feel like they're probably gonna pull something. I wonder like how long it's gonna be before we see Ahsoka. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, it should be a fun time next week.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's get into our main topic. I don't know, Matthew, you're the guest. What are we talking about today? Why are you here?
That's a good question for existential discovery. No, today we're talking about Psych.
Psychology?
No, not psychology. That's actually next week's episode. We're talking about Psych. I believe it is, I want to say like 2006.
I think so.
Something like that. Television show premiered. Oh, I wish I knew this one in advance. I want to say it was on the
USA.
Was it? Okay. Yeah. You guys are the better ones at that. Yeah. It was a television show. It ran for probably like a little under a decade.
Yeah.
I don't really remember the dates.
I think 9 seasons?
8 seasons.
Yeah, it's
8 seasons and 2 movies.
It main plot is very similar. It's kind of, and they mentioned it a couple times in the show. It's very similar to The Mentalist, although it is a comedic spin on the plot of The Mentalist, which I will admit I've never seen, but
I've seen some.
I'm sure I don't know how good it is.
I don't think it's as good as Psych,
Ooh.
but
yeah, there we have a list of main characters. Our main character, Sean, he is we'll say he's like a little bit of like a deadbeat.
sure, yeah.
Not to,
At
like to a
least
certain
at the start.
extent. He's a
Real son of a gun.
little immature, and he has enhanced observational ability. So he picks up on particular details that other individuals wouldn't recognize by looking at them. So he is very, very keen in that department. So many people think that he is a psychic because he can notice things that other people would happen to not notice, and then makes it appear as though he is psychic by applying that. So the whole plot of the show is he works for the police department as a special, I guess,
Consultant.
Yeah, consultant. Good one. As he is a psychic who solves crimes, although he is not a real psychic. So that's kind of the central point of the show.
Yeah, but so the whole point of the show is just Sean going around solving crimes, pretending to be a psychic. Him and his best friend Burton Guster, also known as Gus, also known as many, many other nicknames.
Key Butter Snaps.
What is it? Gus TT Showbiz.
MC Clap Your Hands.
Lego Maego. Okay, but Sean and Gus run a psychic detective agency called Psych, hence the name of the show. And people come in looking for supernatural sleuths to solve their crimes for them. And like Matthew mentioned, he often helps out at the Santa Barbara Police Department, helping them solve crimes. So each episode pretty much is like a different criminal, but so it's like a crime show with more of a focus on comedy. Like, you know, Sean and Gus do a bunch of goofy things, but also people get murdered. So it's sort of, you know, I think it's a good combination of sort of crime drama and comedy, and I think it does it really, really well.
Yeah, I have never been a big fan of just like the average NBC crime show like NCIS or CSI or NCSISI. Like there's so many of them. There's so many, and I guess they're or like Numbers. We used to watch Numbers a lot in high school when like the substitute was in class. But like the shows aren't necessarily bad, but I feel like they're all extremely similar. There's a character who's like the lead guy who's really good, and there's the person who's like the forensics person who is good. Like there's not the characters don't have that much.
Alternatively,
to
the main character in every crime show is a detective who has like some unorthodox way of solving crimes, or he breaks the rules when he solves the crimes, and then he like
loose cannon.
And then he's and then they're like, you're gonna get yourself fired. And he's like,
I just got off the phone with the mayor.
But so this was that made me a little hesitant to watch this. I think like I'd heard about in the past, but then you guys had kind of convinced me to give it a try, and it was very refreshing to have a show like that like there's still the mystery aspect and like who did the crime, but it's also like it's funny and they're getting into crazy antics and there's like running jokes and things that none like these other shows. I feel like it all just feels like filler content, like for your like not the episodes aren't filler, but it just in general it feels fillerish. I don't know, but
I think it's like a big parody on that genre of television, which I believe, I'm sure it still is, although I'm not particularly well versed. I'm sure it is still a very popular genre because, like you said, there are so many shows that kind of like encompass the same theme. So I think they kind of made this, I guess, like riding off the curtails of that genre and making it into something funny and spinning it off, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I think the kind of whole point of this episode, I guess this is sort of a little mini-series we're doing, but we just kind of want to talk about the show and talk about why we like it and why we think you should watch it. You know, you are listeners, and so we just talk about, you know, talk a little bit about the show, why we like it, and hopefully you'll check it out too, because the whole show is streaming both on Amazon and Peacock. Yeah. But if you want to watch the two movies, those are only on Peacock, I think. Right?
And maybe the musical, I'm not sure.
I think the musical is also only on Peacock.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. There is a musical episode, which we'll get into a little bit down the line.
Yeah, I think also one of the reasons that we're doing this now is because I just finished the series. It took me, I started at like the beginning of sophomore year, so it took me like an entire year to finish the show. And
don't let that intimidate you, though. The show is quite easily digestible.
Yeah, so
Will is bad.
I'm just bad at watching television. I'm very slow with shows. I'm still on season 3 of Clone Wars, and I started it last year also. But I am on season 4 of BoJack, so
yeah,
not that bad. But we also just finished the second Psych movie last night, which none of us had seen. So we are officially done the series.
We're all done.
All done. So that's another reason, kind of why we're starting this up now.
Yeah. So I guess we can talk a little bit about characters, maybe break them down a little more. So like we were saying, Sean Spencer, a bit of a loose cannon, doesn't play by the rules. fake psychic. So I think sort of his backstory, his dad, Henry, who also appears in the show a lot, was a cop, and he sort of raised Sean to have these enhanced, observational skills. So, he would sit him down in a room, he'd put a blindfold or something, and he'd say, Sean, how many hats are in the room? And he'd have to remember everything. Or he would say, look at that person, tell me what's happening. And he'd say, oh, look at his hands. Okay, he has like calluses on his hands, so he just started playing guitar, things like that. Mm-hmm. So Henry sort of taught Sean how to be a detective. And I think in the pilot, like, Sean sees like something on TV, like on the news, and he like notices something, and he calls in a tip with the police, and the police are like, whoa, how did you know that? And he's like, I'm a psychic. And I think that's sort of how, if I'm remembering,
they try to arrest him at first, and he's like, I'm a psychic, because they're like, how would, like, the only way you would know any of this is if you committed the crime. Mm-hmm. He's like, no,
I'm a psychic. But so the whole show, is Sean and his best friend Gus going around solving crimes. I think they both bring their own unique talents to the table. Sean has these, enhanced observational skills, so he can notice little things and like, do a lot of that. And Gus is a pharmaceutical salesman, so he knows all about different drugs and medicines and all that. So if there's a pill that the victim had, Gus can analyze it and say, oh, this is this kind of medicine to treat this. It's like, oh, you can only get that here, blah, blah, blah. And Gus also has enhanced sense of smell. He's got a super sniffer, so I think that combined with his pharmaceutical knowledge sort of helps him sniff out like different chemicals and different things, so he can be like food, and like he can like smell something and be like, oh, there's this certain chemical on the victim's shirt, so they must have been over at this place, and then going back and forth. But I think they make a good team.
It was like together they make the ultimate detective.
Yeah, and he's like, there's a big, like, Gus is the straight man, I guess, to Sean, except also not sometimes. He's very much like reluctant to come and go on these adventures, at least at first, but he's also like just as goofy as Sean sometimes. Like they have their own little running gags and little things that they do. And they have the coolest car in the world, the Blueberry, which I've got on my computer on a sticker.
Every time we see a car that is the color, even close to the color blue, we're like, hey, it's the Blueberry. Yeah. And it's like, no.
But yeah, there's some other characters, Matthew, you want to talk a little bit about them?
The other characters within the police department, I believe she's introduced in the first episode, I'm sure.
Or like the first, like the pilot's weird because I know like there's a different partner that Lasseter has in there, like a different police department. I think like the second episode is where it starts to like just feel normal.
Yeah.
I thought in the first episode, spoilers, I suppose, like something Lasseter's old partner, I think maybe it was his wife or something.
Yeah.
And then they found out that they were together and they weren't allowed to be together or something.
Yeah.
So she got transferred or whatever, something like that. But as it would stay for the rest of the series, there are two very important detectives within the police department. Detective Juliet O'Hara, and then also Detective Carlton Lasseter. Juliet O'Hara is this very badass, very straight, very stoic detective who is very well versed and is extremely good at solving crimes. I mean, she doesn't have any particular enhanced ability, but she is very good. Mm-hmm. And her like most defining trait is her like focus on honesty in her life in general. She had a rough childhood, and her father is not a good dude.
Yeah, pretty much all her family members suck.
Yeah.
So she has like a predisposition towards honesty, and that's something that really comes up a lot, especially on episodes that really focus on her or characters that are important to her or from her family. There's a couple episodes where there are family members. I think her brother is John Cena her brother.
Yeah.
John Cena
There's
is her brother.
a John
Yep.
Cena character. He is around for a couple episodes, but every single episode she has kind of like a messed up family and a messed up past. But for some reason I guess she like finds joy in the police department, and then Sean and Gus they're quite close as well with her. So she also is a little bit more forgiving of their antics, unlike our other character, Detective Carlton Lassiter, who is he's the like typical tough guy cop with zero emotion and
Always ready to fire his weapon.
he always has his gun loaded and ready to be fired.
He does love his guns.
He takes his job extremely seriously and probably wouldn't even talk about anything else if he had an option. So it's kind of the exact opposite of Sean and Gus in the sense of like how to solve crimes, because he's very play by the rules and very serious and doesn't make jokes and does his thing. Well, they are the total opposite of guys who crack jokes. They're goofy. They just have fun, and I guess they're both. And he's a good detective, so he solves crimes. But obviously, Sean and Gus like solve a good chunk of crimes as well. So it's kind of a weird. It was like a weird like oxymoron.
They're
of like two
trying
different
to one up
characters.
each other. Like Sean and Gus will usually be like a couple steps ahead of him, and he'll get mad about that. So he'll try to like double his efforts to solve the crime.
I think the thing about Lassie, that's Sean and Gus's nickname for Carlton Lassiter. They call him Lassie. I think one of Lassie's defining traits is that like because he's like head detective of the department, he's getting one up by this random guy who says he's psychic, but Lassie doesn't really believe him. He's always trying to impress everybody, and he wants to feel like important because he's like, I'm head detective, I should be the one solving the crime. It's not this random guy. So whenever he gets one upped by Sean, he like feels jealous, and he's like, you're not like legit detective, and he like doesn't believe he's psychic and all that. And it's just sort of like they like butt heads a lot. And I think Sean sometimes kind of like lets Lassie win because he knows that like sometimes Lassie just like needs to win. I think there are like a couple episodes where like Sean solves the crime, but he sort of like lets Lassie take the win, and then everyone's like, "Oh, good job, Lassiter," and then Sean's like, "Yeah, a good job, Lassie. You deserve this." And so I think even though Sean and Gus like to troll Lassie a lot, I think they do like care about him, and I think sort of this show is all about like the relationships between characters. I think that's another thing that makes it good, apart from like the funny parts or like the crazy murder crime things. Just sort of like this show has a lot of heart, which I really appreciate.
One thing I kind of realized when you were talking about Jules, like she has a rough family or whatever background, but she doesn't fall into like the crime show woman detective stereotype that I've seen, like the like starter pack memes where it's the like person on the detective team is a woman. She's like, I grew up with 5 brothers, so I always had to fight for the last pizza slice, and like they always have an alcohol problem, and they always like there's very much these ingrained tropes within crime shows that women fall into, and Jules like breaks all of them pretty much. She's very much like, she's a badass, like you said. She is also like extremely caring and like loyal and cares about like honesty and everything like that. She's definitely like a departure from the typical character, which I like a lot.
Yeah, I think all of them are different takes on like you could have very easily made this show where every character is exactly what you expect them to be, and it's lame and it's not funny. But I think that's kind of like one of the joys of the show is each character also, like any other show that's long lasting, like character development and relationship growing as well, but how each character kind of takes a different spin on what you might expect out of a character from who's in the position that they're in. I think that's a really, really cool, and I think that the writers did a really, really good job of writing the characters to be that. So it's very cool.
Also, I think what really helps us out, I think the actors that play these characters are just fantastic. We got James Roday Rodriguez, who plays Sean. I think he does a really good job of being goofy. I think him and Dule Hill, who plays Gus, they have such good chemistry.
Let me interrupt you for 1 second. I saw an ad on television for, I want to say it's Hallmark, but like one of those channels. There's a television show called A Million Little Things, and I don't know anything about it, but I saw the trailer, and James Roday Rodriguez is a character in the show, and I don't think, as far as I'm aware, from what I could tell from the advertisement, it didn't look like a comedy. It looked like a romantic show. Yeah, so I don't know anything about it, but I thought it was kind of funny the other day. I saw an ad and I was like, hey, I know that guy.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think James Roday Rodriguez and Dule Hill have great chemistry. Maggie Lawson, who plays Juliet, and Timothy O'Mudson, who plays Lassie, they also have great chemistry. I just love Tim O'Mudson. I loved him in Gallivant. That's another show everybody should watch, but I don't think that's available anymore. RIP. Because it got taken down in September, I think.
Yeah, people are like trying to get it up on Disney Plus. We'll see.
Ooh, we'll see.
But
yeah, I think just the actors who play them are really good, and I think the core is like the core four of the show. I think they all have great chemistry, and they all like really work well together.
Yeah, and the side characters are great too. Like there's ones that they don't show up all the time, but when they do, they do like a good job. There's Woody Strode, the coroner, or like the mortician, who is just insane.
Extremely chaotic character.
He's extremely chaotic, but he's also hilarious. Chief Karen Vick, who
Kristen Nelson
is, I feel like, the most kind of like hard ass, even like more than Carlton sometimes in the police department, but she's also like, the police department's her family, so she cares about them and will sometimes bend the rules to let them get away with stuff. And Buzz McNabb, who is like he's the little puppy of the police department, basically of a cop. He's always just getting into stuff. And there's not many others, but
I think those are probably the most recurring.
Oh, you talked about Henry.
Yeah, Henry.
Oh, Henry. I think Henry's sort of like the mentor character. I think like he does get like his own episodes sometimes, but usually Sean visits Henry at his house, and Henry's like, Sean, you're supposed to mow my lawn. And he's like, Dad, I need you to help me solve this crime. That's really how most of the episodes go. And then Henry, he uses his cop experience to sort of help Sean like lead him into the right direction. Yeah.
He also has like a lot of connections. So there are some times where Sean will have a piece of evidence that he discovered before the police did, and he'll bring it to his dad and say, hey, Dad, can you get this sent to the lab and give me the results really quickly so I can say that I figured it out psychically? So then he has like, oh, yeah, I have a friend in a lab in San Francisco.
Sean.
And then he's like, he comes back with the results so that Sean can say that he discovered it psychically when really he just used typical police methods. It's kind of funny.
And he's always like, Henry's always a big curmudgeon with a heart of gold. And he's very cantankerous.
I just love the words that you just used to describe him.
Thank you. But another thing that I really like about this compared to like, I'm just going to keep like comparing to other shows, I guess, but I feel like a typical cop show, it's they find the body, and then they go to the places where the victim was, they just interview everyone, and then there's some revelation and they figure something out, and then there's like a shootout. And that's pretty much what, am I wrong? Right. Like there's always the cold open where like someone's working like at a dock and they open the shipping container and there's like a dead body and then they scream and then it's the like opening. But
dun dun.
But in this show, a lot of times Sean and Gus, like there's still that type of stuff with the police in the show, and even Sean and Gus go like interview people, but there's a lot of getting deep into like whatever the victim was involved in. The best example I think is there's a couple ones like where Sean joins a like Spanish soap opera, or Sean and Gus go on the equivalent of The Bachelor or The Bachelorette on the show. Like there's one where Sean like checks into a mental institution to find out something going on there. So like they're not just going in from the outside, they're getting involved and they're doing these crazy things. They go to Comic-Con, they like pretty much any type of scenario you could think of, I feel like they cover in the show at some point. And that's usually very funny to watch.
Yeah, and I think because there are like so many scenarios, I think there are a lot of episodes that sort of like pay homage to some of these cop shows, but also to like other types of shows and movies and such. Like there's one episode where they're sort of investigating a new revelation in a really old crime, so they have all these like flashbacks to like, you know, whatever, what is it, like 50s?
Oh yes,
yeah, sort of like 50s type flashbacks where it's all the same characters, like actors, but they're playing like old characters. So like Sean's like a mobster, and Gus is like a Prince type, or more like a Michael Jackson type singer, and like Lassie's like a dorky detective.
Yeah,
and it's just a lot of fun. But they have a lot of these, a lot of pop culture references, which I think is sort of like another big chunk of the show, because Sean and Gus are just, they're dorks that love, they just like love pop culture, and they like reference it a lot. They like talk all about movies and how like a specific situation is like a movie, so that would make Sean this character and Gus this character, and Gus is like, why am I this character? And it's just, you know, a lot of fun.
you know,
Or it's always like they're making jokes and Sean makes a joke that's a reference to a movie, and
Usually
then the
80s.
people who are there are like, I don't understand it. And I feel like that represents, I feel attacked by that as well. That's what I do all the time. So.
Yeah.
You brought up like they have a lot of like concept episodes. That reminds me of Community in a way, where they have the form, like there's a formula to the show. A lot of times, like Sean will show up at the scene, Last will be like, go away. They come anyway. They go to Henry at some point to get help. Like there is the formula, and the Sean's psychic revelation, of course, at the end of the episode. But they do have a lot of these concept episodes where the formula is broken, or it's just even more crazy than usual, like the flashback episodes.
Or there's one episode where they are like investigating a murder in like a mansion, and it's like Clue.
Yeah.
And it's also like Clue, whereas there are a couple different endings in the episode, I think.
And the audience like voted or something.
Yeah, like when the audience, the episode first premiered.
There's that episode where Sean and Gus and Carlton and Lassie and Woody wake up like without any memory of something.
That's a and then it's episode. The Hangover.
And then they kind of like
That's
solve the case, but like in reverse.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's like
the Hangover.
It's like there's a formula, but if you think about like other shows, like there's a formula and the episodes are all kind of structured exactly the same, or there's definitely like spins on the typical on what you might expect out of an episode.
Yeah.
There's even like the episode there's like a Wild West like reenactment or something, and then they're like the whole episode is Western themed. Like it's just, I don't know. They do a really good job of making plots and building settings and backgrounds that are different and are unique in every episode.
It keeps it fresh compared to, I'm sorry, like some of these other shows, like it's the same thing every time. I also feel like there's very little character growth in those shows compared to this show, where across the seasons, if you look at season 2 versus season 8, it's completely different with the characters' relationships and their traits and growth.
Like I think Sean gets a lot of character growth because he sort of goes from this like oh, I'm going to be a fun psychic and, you know, show off and solve crimes, but then as the show goes on, he's like, I need to like take some responsibility. Like these are like real criminals. They're out here like hurting people, and I think some of like the bigger, like more serious episodes where Sean sort of realizes like this isn't just a joke. Like people's lives are at stake.
Yeah,
and I think like the Mr. Yang episodes, which I don't think we should talk about too much because I think you just need to watch that. But I think that's an example of like Sean like sort of snaps back into reality. Like I need to like the stakes are really high. I need to like solve this crime. Like no bullcrap, you know. I don't want to swear.
There's also a lot of really good guest stars on this show, like more than you'd think. Like almost, I feel like almost every episode they have a guest star that like, you know, and compared to like there's big shows that don't have guest stars. Like I think the 4th episode of the show, George Takei's in it. Like even like John Cena, William Shatner,
Wayne Brady, Christopher Lloyd.
I forget what the guy's name is from The Princess Bride who plays Despero.
I think it's like Carrie Elwes or something.
Yeah, Ali Sheedy.
The dude from Tear for Fears.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the guy. What's his name? Kurt Smith.
Kurt Smith from Tears for Fears
shows up several times.
Tim Curry.
They like
they have
Tears
so
for
many.
Fears a lot.
They do.
Yeah, and the ghost stars get like really into it. Really into it. And Christian, I think you had written on here about a lot of musical elements of the show. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Oh, sure. So throughout the show, there are a lot of, kind of song things. Like there's one episode called American Duos, which is like sort of play on like the American Idol type thing where Sean and Gus are protecting, and it's Tim Curry, who's like the Simon Cowell type judge, and someone's trying to like kill him. So Sean and Gus go undercover as participants on the show to sort of, figure out who's trying to kill him. But they're like, we have to like succeed in the show to like stay undercover. So they like work on all these songs, and their final performance, after the crime is solved, they sing Shout by Tears for Fears, and it's really, really good. There's another episode where Gus has an a cappella group called Blackapella, or as Sean wants to rename it, Quarter Black, which doesn't make sense because it's 3 black guys and Sean. But then, so they like sing a number, and then there's a whole musical episode called Psych the Musical, starring, I forget his name, but Anthony Rapp from Rent, and I think he helped write a lot of the songs. And you discover like the whole main cast can like sing really well.
Yes.
And has like, that's several numbers, and that's sort of like a Broadway themed mystery where they're like investigating like a murder in like a Broadway show, and then they like have to like kind of perform the show or whatever. It's I don't know, but I think there's a lot of little sing-songy things where they just do like little, it's not really like a big focus of the show, but it's something I appreciate a lot, just sort of little musical elements throughout the show.
Suck it.
You suck it.
Suck it. They do stuff like that.
They just sort of like sing a lot. I'm going to do that. I'm going to use that as a transition to a lot of there are just a lot of like inside jokes between Sean and Gus that sort of define their friendship. Like they say a lot of things. I don't know. Like I think we kind of mentioned before, whenever Sean introduces himself and Gus to someone they're trying to interview for the crime, he'll be like, my name is Sean Spencer, this is my partner, and then he just makes up a name, and Gus always goes along with it. Like in the American Duos episode, he was like, my name is Sean Spencer, and this is Gus TT Showbiz, and then Gus is like, the extra T stands for extra talent. And like that's just sort of like, Gus is sort of like the more serious side of the duo, but he also like plays into the jokes a lot. Like sometimes Sean has a psychic episode, and Gus is like, don't worry guys, just have the psychic episode, and he would be like, I need my magic head, and he would like stroke Gus's bald head, and Gus would just sort of go along with it. And I don't know, he sort of plays into it. But
yeah, Gus is also very much like a ladies, hopeless romantic, not even a ladies man, because he'll like he does a little thing with his nose, and like he'll like do a thing with his thumb in his nose when he sees a girl he likes, or he'll use Pluto as a pickup line.
He's like, you hear about Pluto? That's messed up, right?
And he very much fails, and there's a huge trope that pretty much every girl who ends up liking him is like the villain of the episode,
or just insane,
yeah.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah, and then there's little things like they'll do fist bumps, like where they'll like
sort of charge it up and then release it,
or they'll like wait for it,
or they'll be like Sean will say, Gus, don't be a blank, and he would like make up some like weird thing. He'd be like, Gus, don't be the very modern, or what is it?
Don't be the
very model of a modern major general, or don't be
the comma in Earth, Wind, and Fire,
or don't be exactly half of an 11-pound ham, or something. Don't be a gooey chocolate chip cookie. There's just like a lot of those. So there's a lot of just like Sean says funny things to Gus. But it's fun.
And yeah, there's gag like there's there's some gags that like get moved over to some character. Like Sean says, I've heard it both ways a lot when he mispronounces something and someone's like, it's that. He's like, I've heard it both ways. And there's a couple times where Last Year Jules uses that, and that like there's a lot of like bleed
something
over
like Sean will say like a revelation, or he'll make like a point, and then Lassie will say something like, well, this is the truth, and no, you haven't heard it both ways, or something like that.
Definitely a lot of like fun gags that sometimes you see them come and sometimes they're like out of nowhere and they're amazing.
I remember one thing. I think it's from the movie, and I think it was in the trailer for the movie, or the first movie. You know, Sean and Gus are going into like a mental hospital, and they're hearing like creepy, weird like moaning sounds, and then so it's like suspenseful music. When Sean turns around, he's like, "Gus, are you playing Pokemon Go?" And he's like, "There's a Charmander around here. Hold on." And I think, you know, even though the show came out, you know, a little bit ago, and the two movies sort of came out more recently, they sort of update their repertoire of pop culture references that I can appreciate. I like Sean mentions Phineas and Ferb a lot.
Yeah,
like he says does. That he bases his British accent on Phineas Ferb's grandfather or something like that, and it was fun.
Yeah.
I want to touch a little. You said talk about Gus's romance. I think there are a lot of funny romance fails in the show. I think Lassiter doesn't have very good luck with romance because, as we said, like the first episode, he was like sleeping with one of his coworkers, and I think he was having an affair.
He might have been.
And then his wife divorced him, so throughout the whole show, he's sort of also kind of a hopeless romantic in a way, but also that kind of conflicts with his serious, no funny business side, and he has trouble finding romance. But
he's very like, I don't care about anything other than my job, like when I'm working. So then there's like, there are episodes earlier towards the end of the show, another character is introduced, but like he'll just like, Gus will be, you know, trying to get with a girl or something, and then it's like Lassiter is this guy who just like doesn't have any care for that particular aspect of his life.
Or when he does try, he just fails spectacularly. Like his way, he thinks that like showing off how to take apart his gun and put it back together is like impressive to a woman, or like that's like a good pickup.
Yeah, because I think that's his sort of whole persona is like, I'm good at my job. So then he'll be like, hey ladies, look, I'm good at my job. Isn't that impressive? Or like he'll be like, this is my gun collection, and ladies will be like, that's really weird. Or he's like, here's my my wall of victims that I've arrested. Look how many people I've arrested. And it's like, okay, that's weird. It's like, it'll be like, oh, this one was, you know, like a serial killer, and I'll tell you all about him. Oh, something we didn't mention about Gus. Gus is a tap dancer.
Oh yeah,
I think that's sort of, he just does that a lot. I don't know.
He also subscribes to Safe cracking magazine. Or something.
He does crack safes. There are like all these little tiny like intricacies and quirks that these characters have that seem meaningless, but they sort of help out in the plot down the line in like a random episode. Like the whole, like he subscribes to safe cracking magazines or whatever, and then they have to like crack open a safe, and he's like, I know, he's like, he knows the specific model of the safe. He's like, I haven't seen one of these in a while. This is really cool. And
he's like, he gets excited by extremely mundane things.
Like he loves astronomy and Pluto.
Yes.
What else does he love? I don't know. He likes to eat a lot. Like he has all
they
these,
do eat a lot.
They do eat a lot.
Chicken.
Oh, the pineapple. That's a
Of course.
running gag in the show. Just a pineapple shows up, and I think that's sort of like is the one thing that's most associated with the show is the pineapple. They always, I think, is it every episode?
I think there's a hidden pineapple.
There's a hidden pineapples in every single episode.
Because
Sometimes
there's
it's
like
obvious,
an early
sometimes it's
episode
not.
where he was like, Sean was like, sorry, slice this up for the
That's
road
the first
or something.
episode,
Is it the
I
first
think.
episode? That's what I thought. So I think that's kind of like a lot of the merchandise and like advertising is all kind of centered around the pineapple as well. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
And I think, moving on in terms of romance, I think a big thing is definitely Sean and Juliet. Will they, won't they? We're not going to tell you. but I think that's a big part of the show. Just sort of, Sean is sort of, he's a bit of a lady, like he tries to be a ladies' man, and he kind of is a little flirty with any of like the women that he meets during investigations, but he
finds more success than he probably ends up finding more success than Gus does.
Yeah.
He's just more. Yeah, he's extremely confident.
Yeah, but the one person he can't ever seem to get is Juliet, because Juliet's like, "Good job, Sean. No, I'm rejecting you."
And he's got a little crush on her too.
He does have like a crush on her, even though he like flirts with all these women, and like we said, more successful than Gus. He always tries to get with Juliet. It just never works.
Yeah, a scene that I really like is early in the show when he almost like goes in to kiss Juliet when they're late at night at the precinct, and he like gets in and she's like, "What are you doing, Sean?" And he's like,
I call this close talking.
Very close talking, and that's hilarious. But yeah, there's always a big will they won't they throughout the show. He's always trying to like impress her, or he like if she's in danger, he's really like worried and upset. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're coming close to the end. I want to talk about the theme song a little bit because we haven't touched on that.
So fire!
It's amazing. It's I think written by the person who made the show, like Steve Franks.
Really?
I think he's in that band is like his band.
I think it's the Friendly Indians.
The Friendly Indians, yeah.
But there's a extremely fire theme song at the beginning of the show. It's got like a full on, sometimes it's like a minute long, usually like a 30-second theme song where they're going through like a compilation of the characters doing wacky stuff. And it goes like, "I know that you know that I'm not telling the truth." And they mix it up for special episodes. There's one where they sing it in Spanish
for the Spanish soap opera episode, or they have like Christmas variations, or in the Black Acapella episode, it's an acapella cover.
It's Boys to Men.
Boys to Men, yeah.
And then I think there's one in the like.
Oh, there's one where they do a parody of The Shining, and they do like sort of an old style creepy rendition of.
And
the
there's
song.
a Twin Peaks one too.
Yes,
but there's tons of variation.
There's an episode where there was like they went to some kind of, I guess it was like a show or like a concert where there was like a bunch of belly dancers and stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to remember.
The theme song was like had like an Indian flair to it, which is really cool.
There's one in like Chinese or something too.
There is,
or Japanese, I forget.
And when they go to like the samurai thing,
yeah,
sword.
It's a great episode.
Yeah, there's a lot of different variation. There's no German one, unfortunately. But I could write that one myself.
Okay, so I think we're getting to the end, so we can start wrapping up. So, just a little description: why should you, the listeners, watch Psych? What do you guys think?
Well, shout out to my dad. Is the one who introduced me to this show. I don't know. We started watching it together. I don't know why, but thanks. I think the show is, well, it's really, really good for a couple of reasons. It is a parody, or it takes a spin on like a very common genre idea and kind of like turns it on its head to a certain extent, which is very entertaining and very fresh. It's very funny, so that helps. It's also extremely easily digestible. Yes. I feel like you could watch 10 episodes in one sitting and not really bat an eye about it. But it's also like, it's also a show where you could kind of pick. Today I'm watching season 3, episode 6, and it's still funny, and it doesn't like, you don't feel like you're kind of missing out on the plot as well. So I think it's an interesting plot idea. It's funny, and it's easily digestible. Those are my 3 main points.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Fred, Will, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with the easily digestible. Usually, one of the reasons it takes me a long time to watch shows is because like I need to be in the mood to watch it. Like if I've had like a rough day or a busy day, I don't want to sit down and watch something really stressful or like super, super deep or like intense. So I think this is a good balance of not just being pure fluff, but it's still engaging. It's still got a good plot, but it's also funny, and it's almost just kind of like relaxing to watch. And I agree. The characters, I mean, it's hilarious. The characters are all great, and it's more entertaining to me than just a typical cop drama or like hospital show or something like that, but it still falls into that genre. So it's a new spin. That's why you should watch it.
So Matthew shouted out his dad. I'm going to shout out my mom for introducing me to Psych. We all sort of watched it as a family when I was younger. Like, we have the entire series on DVD, and like we would all watch it together, and that was a lot of fun. So shout out mom and I guess the rest of my family. But I think one thing that I really like, I agree with what you guys said. I really like the pop culture references because I'm sort of a big geek, and that's sort of in the way that I talk. I sort of speak in pop culture references sometimes, so I appreciate that. But one thing that I really like about the show is sort of it's interactive in a way, kind of like Scooby. In Scooby-Doo, they lay all the clues and you can sort of solve it. But then usually at the end of a Scooby-Doo episode, they reveal all these things that you wouldn't have known in the episode. But I think in Psych, sort of it lays everything out, and you can sort of predict I think it's this person, and then a new piece of evidence is oh, I think I'm right, I think it's this person, and then the reveal at the end, you're like, whoa, I was right. So it's sort of you can sort of solve the crime along with Sean, and it's just so fun to watch. It's so entertaining to see Gus and Sean just sort of goof off while Lassie gets all mad, and Juliet's like, oh, Sean, ha ha ha, or whatever. And then
that's pretty good. That's
Chief
really
is like, Mr. Spencer, Mr. Guster, get back to work, or whatever. And they're like,
Spencer.
It's just fun to watch, and it's these serious crimes. There's murder, there's suicide and all that, and there's just a lot of different crimes, but it's just fun to watch them get justice in a kind of comedic way. So it's not formulaic, it never really gets boring, it's just always fun. There you go. So that's why you should watch Psych.
I have to agree. I think I identify with the characters a little too much. They're a little too similar to my own life. Where I'm
that's right.
Wait a second.
That's
why
right.
is I know too much music information. I know too much information about movies. It's oh, okay.
So that wraps us up. Thank you guys for listening. I'm gonna start plugging all of our outlets now. So if you enjoyed, check us out on Instagram and Twitter at WC in the Morning. We post fun little pictures and updates there. We have a YouTube channel now. It's just Will and Christian in the Morning on YouTube. That's where the full video of the Brental Floss interview is. And I think we're going to be posting this on there.
We'll be posting more stuff on the YouTube channel as well.
Yeah, so just follow us everywhere. Rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Tell your friends about it.
Spread the word, people.
Spread the word.
Matthew, thank you for coming back.
Yes, thank you, Matthew.
Always a pleasure to have you.
It's always a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Oh, wow. And thank you, everybody, for listening. And we will see you next time.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Boo.
Boo. All right. Bye-bye.